Back in my late 20s, I was proudly pregnant. My husband, also in his late 20s, was working as a company employee. Our marriage was good, and he was very considerate of my pregnancy. But there was an incident that completely changed him. I didn't have severe morning sickness or anything, but after we found out I was carrying twins at a checkup, my husband's attitude changed drastically. Having twins can be quite challenging, especially during delivery. Concerned, my husband suddenly proposed that his mother should come and stay with us for a while after the birth, saying it was for my well-being. Of course, I refused. Having my mother-in-law around would only add to the stress. She was a typical fan of making life difficult for her daughter-in-law. We had clashed over this before. I used to work, and there was a big fuss when I decided to quit. My mother-in-law had been living alone since my father-in-law passed away, so we were sending her money. She equated my quitting the job with a reduction in her financial support and insisted I keep working. My husband managed to convince her that the amount we sent wouldn't decrease, and things settled down. There were other issues too. When my husband and I decided to get married, she said things like, "My son could have found someone better. His ex-girlfriend was smart. I'll be lonely if he gets married. Make sure I have a spare key to your house." It was frustrating. I understand she was lonely without her husband, but she was overly dependent on my husband. Back then, my husband prioritized me, and he shielded me from her antics. Our in-laws lived just an hour away by train, and she didn't visit often. But having the spare key, she would enter our house unannounced, check the fridge, the bedroom. It was a lot to deal with. After some problems, we took back the spare key and my husband distanced himself from her. So, it was shocking when he suddenly suggested bringing her to our home. Of course, we talked about it. But he just wouldn't understand. "Why would you suddenly want to bring your mother here? Do you remember all the issues we had with her? Isn't it going to be difficult living under the same roof?" I was talking to Mom the other day. All that was when we were newly married, right? She seems to have reflected on it, and I think it's time to forgive her. Sure, she went a bit too far, but she did raise 2 kids. It's better to have someone around than no one at all. Your family is far, right? I'm worried about you going there. If Mom's here, she can help if something happens, and she seems lonely too. Wouldn't you feel safer? Not at all. Did you think about what happens if your mom and I clash? Mom's not up for any trouble. You're worrying too much. I was so fed up. Nothing I said got through to him. Let's put this conversation on hold. We'll decide after a proper discussion, I concluded for the day. Within a week, my husband called to say he'd be late. He usually didn't work overtime, so I wondered what was up. Then he came home with a huge bag and his mother. He went ahead despite my objections. I called him to the bedroom for an explanation. "What's this about suddenly bringing your mother? Why didn't you discuss it with me?" "Well, you were against it, and Mom was worried. I thought I'd step in and bring her over. I was late because I went to pick up her stuff." That's not what I'm asking. Why did you bring her without talking to me? I did it for you. Before I could respond, his mother barged in. "What's for dinner? Are you eating properly? I brought some food because I was worried." "Haven't eaten yet? Let's eat together." "See, it's good to have Mom around, right?" my husband said, looking proud. That wasn't the point. I had prepared dinner, expecting a normal evening. His mother, seeing this, said, "That's not good enough, dear. You need to be more careful with your food during pregnancy. My precious grandchild needs to be born healthy. I'll take care of your meals. I brought these, they're nutritious for pregnancy. I'll manage your health from now on." My husband, either happy that his mother was concerned or thinking we had made up, was more talkative than usual during dinner. I thought about going to my family's place, but it was far, and my husband couldn't visit often. Plus, my brother and his wife were living there, so it wasn't feasible. I had planned to spend the pregnancy at our home, and now this. Every day became a nightmare. She was nice in front of my husband but returned to her typical ways when he wasn't around. She would say she'd do the chores, but I ended up doing everything. My mother-in-law would leave a mess after eating, and I found myself cleaning up after her. About a week in, I had a serious argument with my husband. "Hey, I need to talk to you about your mom." "Yeah." I wanted to talk too. "It's great that you two are getting along. You're doing the chores because she's elderly, right? She's really happy about it. But don't overdo it, okay? Let her do the chores she says she'll do." It seemed he thought I was voluntarily doing the chores, not that she was dumping them on me. "That's not it. I never said I would do them. She's the one telling me to." "There's no way my mom would say that. She's here because she's worried about you. Why won't you listen to me? You have no idea what she does when you're not here. It's wrong that you always doubt me." He told me, "Mom warned me in advance. You might say strange things because you're emotionally unstable during pregnancy. You're irritable, so you only see the negative, right?" "That's not true. She's making me eat different meals, eating the meals I make without me, and I'm doing all the laundry and cleaning, including hers. Don't you find that odd?" Just as I was about to continue, my mother-in-law entered the bedroom. "Sorry, dear. I thought I was helping. You were doing everything, so I took advantage of that. I'll take care of myself from now on." See, she admits it. Can't you forgive her? She was obviously faking her tears, yet my husband sided with her. I was furious. I wanted to expose her actions to my husband, but it wasn't easy. I couldn't worry my parents, and staying at a hotel wasn't practical. So, I decided to only take care of myself. I made breakfast only for me, lunch too. For dinner, I made food for everyone but ate what I wanted. When I started this, my mother-in-law lashed out, "Why isn't my meal prepared? Are you trying to harass me?" I retorted, "Didn't you say you'd take care of yourself? So, I'm only preparing my meals and doing my laundry. Oh, and I'm going to the checkup alone today, so please relax at home." "What are you saying? I told you I would go with you. I need to see my grandchild's growth with my own eyes and talk to the doctor. Please make sure they're born safely." "It's okay, I don't want you causing a scene in the examination room. I'll go shopping and then to the checkup," I said, leaving while she was still talking. She couldn't complain to my husband because she had promised to be independent. I prepared dinner properly, so even if she complained, it would be about not being allowed to accompany me to the gynecologist. As expected, she complained to my husband, but he just laughed it off, saying it would be unfair for her to go before him. Serves her right. I decided to take action. The trouble began when I was 6 months pregnant. My belly was quite large, and daily life was a struggle. I kept doing chores. With 2 babies inside, it was challenging, but my mother-in-law did nothing and lounged around. If I slacked off, she would make snide remarks. I continued doing only my chores. Knowing talking to my husband was futile, she reluctantly did her own chores. I was going about my usual routine when my water broke unexpectedly. Luckily, my mother-in-law was out, so I called a taxi and went to the maternity clinic. I had prepared in advance, so I quickly contacted my husband. I repeatedly warned the doctors not to let my mother-in-law visit, insisting I would resent it if she was called. Despite the excruciating pain, I endured, thinking, I won't let her be part of this. My husband held my hand as I said, "If you call your mother, I'll resent you forever. If you want to meet our children safely, don't call her." Thanks to her absence, the delivery went smoothly, though it was tough, with one baby born naturally and the other through cesarean. My husband couldn't be there for the actual birth. After the birth, I allowed him to inform his mother. She wanted to come immediately, but I told her visits were prohibited, which made her furious. "What do you mean no visits? I'm their grandmother. I'll be raising them. It's absurd I can't meet them." "What do you mean you'll raise them? They're my children. I gave birth to them, so I'll raise them. They're our family's heirs. They won't grow up properly with you. Let me see my grandkids, or I'll report this. Next to me was my husband, his face pale as a ghost. My mother-in-law probably didn't realize he was there and spoke in her usual manner. Before answering the call, I had told my husband to stay quiet. When the call ended, he hesitantly asked, "Was that my mom? Has it always been like this?" "Yes. It's always like this when you're not home. I've told you many times, haven't I? Living together is impossible. I'm going to go home right now and talk to my mom. This is too much." "Just don't say anything right now, and don't tell your mom anything either. Just keep quiet." "But..." "Just do as I say. I have a plan." He listened to me, probably because we had just had the kids. The next morning, my mother-in-law kept calling. I was exhausted from childbirth, but I answered. "Why didn't you answer sooner? I've been calling multiple times. I'm exhausted from giving birth. Let me rest a bit." "A daughter-in-law shouldn't rest. Come back this second." "You want me to come back now? That's impossible. I need to stay in the hospital, and who leaves on the same day they give birth?" "Don't make excuses. Those children are mine. I don't want you with them for a second longer. Bring them back now." I hung up on her mid-rant and ignored all her subsequent calls. Who goes home right after giving birth, anyway? The hospital stay was truly a relief. On the day of discharge, I returned home with my 2 children. My mother-in-law tried to snatch the kids away, but she was stopped by a group of people behind me. "What? Why are they here?" I couldn't handle the discharge alone, so I asked them for help. "Please come in, everyone." I had called my mother-in-law's sister and brother, her father, my parents, and my brother, a full house of relatives. "Everyone, please come in, it's a bit crowded. I'll make some tea." "You don't need to, dear. You, go do it," commanded my mother-in-law's sister to her. My mother-in-law turned pale. She was always intimidated by her sister and brother, and now her father was there too. Her usual bravado was gone. "Why did you push all the chores onto a pregnant woman? Aren't you ashamed?" asked her sister. "No, that's not it. It was because she needed exercise." "And what were you doing living in this house? You left her in charge of your wife. What were you doing?" "Me? I heard you refused living separately. You both planned this, didn't you?" "No, it's not like that. I was worried about her, so I asked my mom to help." "You heard the call yesterday, right? Bring back my grandchildren immediately. She said she would raise my children. I've always been told that. But you never listened to me, did you? Living together, do you think it made things easier for me? It didn't." "That's not true. I did things around the house." "You only took care of yourself, right? Initially, you pushed the chores onto me, and then you only started doing them when I stopped. Taking care of yourself should be a given." "I'm really sorry, dear. I'll take her away," said her brother. Her brother, a farmer in the countryside, had come just for this occasion. Her father was living with him too. "Wait, brother. Why does it have to be like this? I have no intention of leaving here. I can't leave you near her. I'm worried about the future. Fortunately, my farm is short-staffed. Even someone like you is better than no one." "Brother, I can't do farming." "Got a problem with farming? With the farm I treasure?" "No, it's not that." "Then it's settled. But I'll be strict." My mother-in-law, more intimidated by her sister than her brother, didn't seem likely to go quietly with her sister. My husband looked worried, but it was his turn next. "Hey! It's your turn. Who should be your first priority? Don't compare your mother and your wife. If you're married, your wife should come first." "I've been reflecting. I'll do better from now on." I didn't respond right then. It wasn't over yet. Pack your bags right now. If you won't, I will. Wait! I'll leave this house. But going to my brother's place. You've already disposed of your own house, haven't you? This was news to me, but apparently, before coming to our house, they had disposed of the family home. It was an old house that my husband and I had been fixing up little by little. Now, the only places my mother-in-law could go were her brother's or sister's homes. Realizing her pleas wouldn't work on them, she began to hurriedly pack. Her brothers took her away, and then it was my husband's turn. He sat uncomfortably across from my parents. About this time. We didn't allow our daughter to marry you for this. You understand, right? I understand. I've reflected on this. But there won't be any more issues like this. My mom has gone back to the countryside, so it's just about the children now. It's okay. That's no longer important. What do you mean, no longer important? I'm taking the children and going back to my parents. You're getting a divorce. Wait, please. This is too sudden. It's not sudden. I've been thinking about this since your mother came to live with us. Her leaving doesn't solve everything. But I never heard you talk about divorce before. I was waiting for today, the day I could get rid of your mother. I've thought about the children too, but it's impossible. Do you understand how it feels to be rejected by the one you asked for help? No matter how much I talked to your mother, you always took her side. She's reformed. She's old. Did you ever listen to me? I heard you, but... A divorce over this? To you, it might be this much, but to me, it's not just this. Being told that she would raise my children, not being believed by the person I trust. What have you been looking at all this time? You married my daughter. But instead of listening to her, you always listened to your mother. Do you understand how insecure I felt? It's not over just because your mother left. I'm going back to my parents with the children. We can talk about child support later. That's fine, right? That's not okay. I don't want a divorce. You know, I'll never forget what happened during my pregnancy. In an instant, I came to dislike you, and it's likely I'll never feel the same again. I don't want to show the children their parents fighting. That may be true, but I'll try harder. We can be happy together like before. Can't you reconsider? Here's a question. If your mother comes crying to you in the future, what will you do? Well, you can't answer immediately, so that's a fail. It's a pity. If you had trusted me and just lived with me, this wouldn't have happened. Such a shame. Are you okay with making the children fatherless? I won't be there, you know. How much value do you think you have? Don't forget, I can earn more than you when I return to work. I'll always be here at home, ready to help with anything, my mom said. Me too. I'll look after the children or do anything needed, my dad added. How about that? I have 2 strong supporters. If you like your mom so much, why don't you go after her now? Realizing his words were futile, my husband didn't say anything more. I packed my things and went back to my parents' house. After a while, my husband sent the divorce papers. I received messages from him, but I only replied to those concerning the divorce. The rest was mostly about the children. He seemed to be reflecting in his own way. As for my mother-in-law, after being taken in by her brother, she apparently started working in the fields daily. It's a fairly large farm, so initially, she was useless, working from early morning under her brother's scolding. She couldn't seek help as her son had abandoned her, and her brother was still not in contact. She seems to be surviving, at least. With the twins, parenting is more challenging than I expected, but my parents help me every day. Their cuteness and everything else is double, bringing true happiness. When one cries, so does the other, a moment of despair. I find myself wishing for 4 arms, or even 6, every day. Although it's sad for the children to grow up without a father, I will cherish them dearly and make them the happiest children in the world.